We are the branches and he is the vine. And as long as we are joined with him, we will develop and produce something of great value. But if a Christian separates themselves from Jesus, will simply wither and die. This is kind of a difficult parable for us, especially for us as modern people, because of our sense of freedom. In the modern world, we're trained to have a right now mentality. Modern people consider freedom to mean our independence, our ability to do whatever we want, whenever I want, with no external constraints. We're supposed to be free. There is, of course, some truth in this view of freedom. None of us should impose any unnecessary restraints on others. Nevertheless, this view of freedom, it doesn't get to the heart of what we are as human persons. It doesn't get at the heart of it, what it really means. For us as Christians, freedom means becoming the person we were meant to be. Becoming who in God's eyes, who is our Creator, becoming what he meant us to be. Someone can say, well, I earn my money. I can spend it any way I want, any way I wish. If I want to go out and go drinking, I should be able to do that. If I want to go gambling with my money, I should be able to do that if I want to. If I want to do drugs, I should be able to do it. If I want to watch pornography, I should be able to do it. Is that person free? Or is that person enslaved to those vices? A branch is not equal to the vine, even though they share a similar nature. For example, a child before and after birth they're not equal to their mother. Even though they share that same human nature, they're not equal. Is it true that as we mature, we achieve a certain degree of independence? Yes, we do. But still, no one ever becomes totally independent. The truth is that we realize our true selves. We recognize our deeper dependence on our fellow human beings and upon Christ. We realize that we ourselves, we can't do it on our own. We find a beautiful and a powerful representation of this truth in the life of Saint Marcellus, a saint many of us probably know little about. But this man was a centurion who worked in the imperial army of Rome. And he embraced the Christian faith during one of those calm periods when Rome was kind of at peace before there was a storm of the Roman persecutions. And as he began to live out his daily life, as he began to live out his faith, he began to realize and to notice that things were different. He began to see clearly the decadence of the normal activities that were encouraged by the pagan Romans. The various forms of self-indulgence, their lust, their violence, their gluttony, this life of imperial army that it encouraged people to live. But this man began to see that he wasn't free. He began to see how these different actions that people were living, how it would destroy the Roman Empire. Because they looked at that and they thought, this is really freedom. But in a sense, they were cutting themselves off from the vine. They were cutting themselves off from the lifeblood that they needed. And this began to bother his conscience. How could he follow Christ faithfully if he continued to follow these pagan practices that were all around him? And finally, his crisis reached a huge feast, or a huge feat in his life, when there was a feast that was being held in honor of the emperor's birthday. And attendance, it was required by everyone. No matter what, they had to go to this public event. But it was there that he became disgusted about what was going on, and he publicly renounced his allegiance to the emperor and his army. He threw to the ground the insignia of his rank, and he walked out. But of course, he knew that by abandoning this rank, by abandoning the army, that his allegiance would be a capital crime. And so the soldiers, they brought him before the officials and they accused him. And the saint, he began to explain his actions, why he was doing it, by saying, "I serve Jesus Christ, the eternal King. I will no longer serve your emperors, and I scorn to worship your gods of wood and stone, which are deaf and dumb idols." He began to see that if he, a branch, was not part of that vine, he too would wither and die like all the rest. He had concluded that that requirement of this pagan duties were incompatible with the demands of living a Christian life. How about us? When we look at the demands on our lives, are they compatible with the vine? We as the branches, do we live off of that life of the vine? Or are we withering as we're removed from the vine? This saint, he stopped just talking the talk and started walking the walk. He was put on trial for treason, refused to worship the pagan gods, and was eventually executed, a martyr. He is the vine. We are the branches. This man, because he remained connected to the vine, he bore much fruit. He became a saint. He became a saint in his life. And if we remain united with him, if we remain united with Christ, if we stay to the vine, we too will bear much fruit. The question we need to ask ourselves today, are we bearing fruit, or are we withering on the vine? Without Christ, we can do nothing. As we celebrate this Eucharist tonight, let's recommit ourselves to Christ, to living next to that vine, being those branches, so that we too can bear much fruit.